Howdy folks, hope you all are doing well today. We are going to talk about the Dynaudio Contour 20i. These speakers were loaned to me directly by Dynaudio. I wasn't paid to review these or given anything in return. They haven't seen this review, nor do they know anything about what I'm going to talk about. Kind of par for the course, but just letting you know if you're new here. These retail for about $5,750 USD per pair. Let's blow through some specs real fast. These are a two-way speaker with a vented enclosure. It features the Esotar 2i silk dome tweeter, which is about 1.125 inches in diameter. The woofer is a magnesium silicate polymer with about 7 inches in overall diameter. Power range is spec'd at about 40 to 180 watts. Sensitivity is spec'd at 86 decibels. Impedance is spec'd at 4 ohm. These weigh about 31 pounds and are available in a couple different finishes. As you can see here, I got the black gloss finish. Just a personal note, my personal opinion, I think these are really nice looking speakers. I really like the metal fabrication on the front, just the nice contour to it, and the overall gloss finish was very well done. I also like the binding posts on the back. They just look kind of neat. Let's talk about some of the pros from my listening session. Now, when I set these up, same thing as I always do. Try them on axis, try them toed out, try them off the wall, try them really close to the wall, all sorts of different configurations. And what I wound up landing on was these speakers at about 1 to 2 feet off the wall. So from the back of the speaker to the wall behind the speaker, 1 to 2 feet was kind of that sweet spot. And like anybody else's room, you're going to want to play around with that. But I will say that one of the benefits, if you will, is this speaker has a relatively shallow bass roll-off. Now, what that means is you're going to be able to put the speaker a little bit closer to the wall without it having a lot of extra boom. Now, there are different ways that speakers can be designed to have a bass profile that doesn't cause a lot of extra boominess when you place it really close to a wall. This is one way. But another way is to do it with an extended bass shelf. Now, this is something that you see in a lot of KEF designs, and there are a few other brands that do this as well. So it's not uncommon. Integrating a subwoofer with this kind of roll-off, in my opinion, okay, this is just my opinion based on my experience, it's easier to integrate a subwoofer with a roll-off profile like this rather than having a roll-off profile that just is kind of flat through the bass and then immediately drops down, like you'll see in a lot of active designs where they have really steep electronic crossovers. Integrating a subwoofer with a profile of bass roll off like this one has, again, my opinion, is typically easier. So I would personally consider that a pro. In terms of overall tonality and timbre, I'll say this speaker is kind of a jack of two trades. That's not what I want to say. It depends on how let's go with that. It depends on the room. Now, you're probably thinking, well, of course it depends on the room, but I'll say this too. There are a lot of speakers that are not as influenced by the room as other speakers. This particular speaker, based on my experience and using these in my living room with one open wall and then one side wall, and then in my bedroom, which is smaller but has two side walls within about like 3 feet of the speaker, I'll say this. In the bedroom, the lower treble to me was too pronounced. In the living room, where there's more space, the lower treble was not as pronounced and it sounded more neutral. So this speaker in a larger room or a room without sidewalls is going to sound better than it will in a room with really close sidewalls, if that room doesn't have sidewall absorption. So first recommendation with this speaker is to use sidewall absorption. What that will do is that will bring down some of the lower treble. Obviously, try them first and see if you like them. Heck, you may like them with that little bit of more pronounced lower treble. But for me, S's and things just tended to sound too harsh. I liked it when I was able to use sidewall absorption in my bedroom for these speakers or in my living room where I didn't really need it due to the larger space. I would also recommend that when you listen to these speakers, try listening to them directly on axis at first. Most speakers are designed to be listened to that way, but as you go, you may find that some speakers sound better toed out away from the listening position. Personally, I find these speakers to be listened to best directly on axis or slightly towed out about 10 degrees off axis, which would be something like what you see here. If you have access to equalization through maybe your DAC or your preamp, you might also want to try using a small little cut between about 3 to 5 decibels of maybe 1 to 2 decibels. And the reason I say that again is going back to the lower treble sounding more pronounced than the upper mid range because of the way that the radiation pattern in the speaker is. And I'm going to get into that shortly. You may not need it, but if you find that the treble is just a little bit too much, I recommend maybe 1 decibel, maybe even 2 decibels through that region. And that should help smooth that out a little bit. On the con side of things, because there's always trade-offs with speakers, the sensitivity of the speaker is relatively low at about 82.5 decibels measured on my system. Also, keep an eye out for amplifiers with a high output impedance. Now, I've got a whole video about how high output impedance amplifiers can really change the sound that you're hearing from your speaker. And really, it's because the speaker is putting a really different load on that amplifier. And that is most often where people say amplifiers sound different, because they can, depending on if that amplifier is a high output impedance amplifier. But that's already covered in another video. Check it out over here somewhere if you're interested in watching that. Suffice it to say that if you use like an old tube amp, something like a set amp or something like that, that has high output impedance, that amplifier is going to be affected by this speaker primarily in the mid-range area, maybe like around 200 to 300 hertz. And it's going to result in as much as maybe a 2 decibel dip through that region. So this speaker will not sound warm. I want people to understand that. It's not going to sound warm on a tube amplifier. If anything, it's going to sound more the opposite of warm. Now, the reason I say that is because warm, 20 years of me doing this stuff, has always been defined by me as maybe a little bit more pronounced mid-range. Again, maybe let's say like 200 to 800 hertz. Maybe that's a little bit more bumped up than the treble or the upper mid-range. So maybe there's a dip in the upper mid-range. Maybe it's not so much that there's a bump in the mid-range, but a dip in the upper mid-range. That dip in the upper mid-range relative, again, this is all relative to the mid-range creates a little bit of an imbalance. So you wind up having a sound in the mid-range that sounds a little bit more elevated than the upper mid-range or lower treble. Again, if you use a tube amplifier or a set amplifier and you're expecting it to sound warm through these speakers, you're going to get the opposite result. So now let's look at the data. All the data that you're about to see is measured using my Klippel near-field scanner. It is a state-of-the-art robotic device that allows you to get anechoic data in a non-anechoic environment, such as my garage, which you see here. Frequency response first. Mean SPL 82.5 decibels, F3 at 56 hertz, F10 at 32 hertz. On axis response within plus or minus 3 decibels. For the most part, through the mid-range, you're within about 1.5 decibels. So that's really quite good. Now, a minute ago, I mentioned turning the speaker off axis of maybe about 10 degrees. And when you do that, that's going to bring some of this treble right here down. It's going to put it more neutral overall. Now let's do a quick sound clip so you can hear what that graphic sounds like. This is the CEA 2034 data set. And we can see here again, on-axis response is within about plus or minus 3 decibels. The thing I want to point out here is there is a directivity mismatch between the mid-range and the tweeter. Now, it could be by design. And I wanted to point it out here because this is where it stands out the most. Now, it comes from, at least according to what I'm seeing in the data, from a combination of the horizontal radiation profile of the mid-range to the tweeter, but also the vertical displacement between the mid-range and the tweeter. This aligns very well with what I heard in my 2 different listening rooms. Again, in-room extension to about 50 hertz. Upper mid-range dip may lack the attack or clarity in vocals or brass instruments. And I've just kind of called that out right here, right through that region, around 2 kilohertz. And then also I noted the lower treble lift. So I'm saying about 3 to about, what is that? Maybe, actually that's a little bit higher. So if I said upper treble lift, then that would be this area. Okay. So lower treble lift is about 2 decibels or so above the kind of the mean overall sound power of the speaker. And I put the recommendation down here just so it stands out that if you use these in a large room without sidewalls, or you use sidewall panels to absorb the upper mid-range lower treble reflections, you'll have a more neutral sounding speaker overall. Here is the burst decay, and you can see there's a little bit longer decay in the upper mid-range lower treble region right through here. And now we look at the horizontal contour plot. Now this gives us an idea of what the radiation is relative to the on-axis sound. And basically I've drawn these blue lines to say that this speaker is about plus or minus 70 degrees wide through the mid-range. You flare out as you go from the mid-range to the tweeter area. And this right here is going to be extra sound that's radiated off to the side of the speaker, and it's going to hit your sidewalls. That's where absorption would come in handy. Vertical response is pretty good within about minus 20 to about plus 30 degrees. You're going to have a very similar response overall, but this isn't like a coaxial speaker where you can get up and walk around the room and have essentially the same tonality. You're going to need would be within maybe about plus or minus 20 degrees. Definitely don't go above or below that, because if you do, you're going to experience a pretty reasonable shift in tonality. Harmonic distortion at 86 decibels and then at 96 decibels. Multi-tone distortion shows us we've got some increased distortion around 700 hertz. This lines up with the harmonic distortion that we see here. It's pretty typical to see higher second order distortion from a case where you have the cone edge and the cone surround where they meet to be a little bit out of sync with each other. Now this happens with Dynaudio drivers, audio technology drivers, ScanSpeak drivers, and many, many more. I mean, I tested raw drive units for about 15 years, and it was very common. So it's not that I'm not used to seeing it. It stands out on a graph though. So going back to the multi-tone distortion full range, again, this is going to be that cone edge surround out of syncness, if you will. And if I'm wrong about that, I will make sure to put it in the comment section below. So keep an eye out for that. I'm sure Dynaudio will let me know. Now, if you cross the speaker at 80 hertz, what happens to the multi-tone distortion? Well, it lowers a little bit. I'll go back. Not a huge difference, but a little bit in the mid-range area. Long-term compression within about 0.75 decibels up to 96 decibels. That's good. Short-term compression, we can see if you go up to 96 decibels, you're within about half a decibel of short-term compression. Then if we look at impedance, calling out this resonance right here, that's going to sync up to the harmonic distortion and the multi-tone distortion spikes that we talked about previously. The overall minimum EPDR is at about 2.2 above 80 hertz. So if you're looking through this region, your minimum is down to about 100 hertz or so. Minimum impedance, so without calculating for the phase angle and the magnitude, but just looking at the magnitude, you're down to about 4.1 ohm, and that's going to be right around 300 hertz. One of the things I've started doing in the past few months is simulating the speaker's effect on an amplifier. And the reason I do this is because, yes, you can hear differences in amplifiers depending on the speaker. It's not nonsense. Now, whether or not you should, I think you shouldn't. I think a good amplifier shouldn't be changed because of the load that's presented to it, but it happens and we just deal with it. I'm always interested to know if there's a way that we can predict that change. So I spent a lot of time, a lot of energy diving into this subject and came up with a way to simulate the effect. And when we look at this simulation, what we see is what I referenced earlier about using a high output impedance amplifier, such as an SET amplifier or something of that nature. You're going to have a dip in the mid-range area. So if we take that and apply it to the frequency response, this is what we get. Black was the actual measured frequency response with a very low output impedance amplifier. And then if I simulate different output impedance amplifiers, we can see that if you were to use a high output impedance amplifier, like a tube amp or a set amp or something like that, maybe a poorer design, you're going to run into a dip through the mid-range as much as 2 decibels. That's going to result in a very mellow sound. Now, if you wanted a warm sound and you're thinking, I'm going to use a tube amplifier to get a warm sound, then you would be looking for the effect where it's pretty much a bump right through this region. Instead, you're going to get the opposite result. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That does it for this review. Overall, I like the speaker, but you have to be careful with setup. This is not a one-size-fits-all speaker. I like the fact that you can put it near a wall. I like the very wide radiation because it's very enveloping. The overall neutrality of the speaker in a large room or a room with sidewall absorption is going to be quite nice. And I like the look of the speaker a lot. So thanks again for everybody who's watching. And personal favor time here. It's Christmas time. A lot of you people are ordering things for friends and family and whatnot, and you're ordering from Amazon or Crutchfield, or maybe you're getting yourself something from Crutchfield or Audio Advice. I have a lot of generic affiliate links in the description section and the pinned comment below this video. They're all generic, so it doesn't matter what you do. You click that link, and then anything you buy through that link, I earn a small commission on. It doesn't cost you anything extra, and that really allows me to just keep doing this stuff and earning a little bit extra income off of it without having to stoop to doing sponsors and lame stuff like that. So if you appreciate what I'm doing here, I would appreciate you taking the time to use those links, or you can join me at patreon.com/Erin's Audio Corner. That is enough for my spiel. Check out my Lincoln Hawk shirt. It's a reference to Over the Top. Do you guys remember Over the Top? A classic 80s movie. All right. I will talk to you all later, and I hope, genuinely, I hope that you have a great day. Okay? Take care.